everybody, what's up? This is your girl Dragon and it's time for another Fortnite creative tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to make an objective mode game with a waypoint system. I do hope you guys find this tutorial beneficial and you're able to use these elements within your own map. Let's go ahead and check it out. But before we do, don't forget to drop that like and that sub because it definitely helps the channel, and if this tutorial helps you, you're going to definitely want to do that so you don't miss any more. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's go! So this tutorial was actually derived from a question that was asked by Edits Create in the creative block. It's an awesome question. He wanted to know how to make a system that after reaching a location, it unlocks on a menu, specifically the pop-up dialog menu. In addition to that, he wants to make sure that when a player reaches a location, it will then show up on the pop-up dialog menu, meaning that if they haven't reached that location yet, it's going to show up as not accessible, and then once they do reach that location, it's going to show up as accessible, and they'll be able to teleport to that location. I think that's an awesome question, so let's go ahead and explore it in this tutorial. Let's go! I went ahead and created a special little island here just for this tutorial. In the middle you can see the waypoint and 4 other objectives that are set off to the side. Time to jump in deeper so I can show you guys what's going on here. Alright, when players spawn in, they're going to spawn in right here. When they start, they're going to be receiving an alert to allow them to know which objective they need to complete first. This alert will actually direct them directly to the objective. In the waypoint, they will see a display showing them what objectives are available. These objectives are displayed on monitors, and they'll see only the current one available at the time that it is available. For example, when they complete Objective A, they'll then see Objective B displayed on the monitor because it will then be available. The objectives are spread out for this tutorial. However, if you're making this type of map and the objectives are, let's say, different biomes, then they'll be probably displayed far off somewhere else on your map. For the objectives that are not complete, there's a barrier that will prevent the players from entering. These barriers will not be disabled until they complete the necessary objectives. Inside each objective room is an objective device, and I added a VFX creator just to give it a really cool effect. When this objective is complete or destroyed, it will open up the next objective. Players must complete each objective to proceed on to the next. When they reach the final objective, a timer will display and the game will end. This entire process is connected to a travel system, and for me, I went ahead and I made kind of like a portal that they could go into to get the pop-up menu device. This type of travel system or portal can be placed anywhere on your map, or if you want it to be a little bit more mobile, you can set it up through a remote system. However, for this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and focus on a portal-like travel system. The travel system correlates with the objectives, meaning that when an objective is complete, it will correlate with a new pop-up menu that will display a new area that the players can teleport to. I also like to add that in this tutorial, I created a sense of urgency. And what that means is when the game starts, the player is going to see a clock that's going to be counting down to a potential threat of a flood. If they do not complete the objectives in time, the entire area will be flooded and the game will end. This tutorial is going to be very extensive, so if you feel that you need to pause at parts, feel free to do it. Let's go ahead and do a rundown of all the devices you're going to need to create this type of system. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over the local devices that you're going to need. If you have a one-player game, you're going to need one player spawn pad, And you need a way for them to get back to the waypoint, so I have a waypoint teleporter right here. This teleporter will be connected to your pop-up menus. This is optional, but if you lay it out this way, you're going to need some type of display portal of all the areas that the players can access. Next, let's review the objectives. You're going to need a barrier, a map indicator, an objective device, and a VFX creator. And again, that's optional. I included a HUD message device, so when they destroy the objective, it's going to let them know which area opens up next. As for map indicators, you can see that I do have one for each area. I have one for my waypoint and for each objective area. You do not see them on the mini-map now because they are turned off and they're only enabled when an objective is completed. And we'll go over that when we look at the settings. Each objective room is set up the same as the one I already went over, so that's practically it. And I also have billboards here to display the sectors that are open at the time. In addition to that, for this tutorial, I have a water device that's connected to a health power-up device, which is out here. We have 4 mutator zones and 4 pop-up menus. We have 4 more teleporters that are connected to each sector. We have 2 timers, and one is actually started by a trigger. We have 1 in-game device and a HUD message device that reminds the player of what their first objective is. To add to the experience, I have alerts that go off if they fail, if they discover a new location, and when they have opened up all locations. Now that you have a complete rundown of all the devices, it's time to check out the settings, so let's do it. Since we started on the inside going out, let's go ahead and start on the outside going in and review all of the details for each device. First up is the health power-up device. I renamed it the health damager, and it's assigned to the water, so I made sure I listed water. Let's go ahead and go to all options and we'll take a look through that. The modified stat is set to health only. The effect is set to decrease at a percentage. The effect magnitude is at 80. Effect duration is infinite. I do have it to set show visual effect on player. Disable effect on pickup is set to no. Pickup radius is on touch. Time to respawn is set to 15 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and set it to instant for this tutorial. Spawn on minigame start is set to yes. Ambient auto is set to on, even though the players will not hear it since this is so far away, so this really doesn't matter in this instance. If you have this device close to the players, then you might want to turn it off. Pickup audio is set to on. Selected team is any. Selected class is any. This is going to apply to the player only. Who can see this power-up is set to players who can pick up. Now again, this is far away, so they're going to only be picking this up when they make contact with the water. Let's go ahead and move on to functions. So spawn when receiving from is empty. Despawn when receiving from is empty. What's important here is pick up when receiving from, and we're going to set that to water, and that's my water device. And it's going to pick up on the event when the player enters the water. And as you see, I have nothing set for events. Next, we have the mutator zones, and this is the core of the system. So let's go ahead and take a look. I've named each mutator zone to fit the objective. So this is mutator zone device menu A, mutator zone device menu AB, mutator zone device menu ABC, and mutator zone device menu A, B, C, and D. Let's go ahead and take a look at A and look at all options. Allow weapon fire is set to no. Allow building is set to no. The zone is not visible in game, so that is set to no. Base visible during game is set to no. The zone width is at a 0.5 as well as the depth, and the height is at a 1. Enable during phase is set to gameplay only. Affects player, yes. Creatures, yes. Guards, yes. Again, these don't matter. However, if you do have creatures and guards in your game, you want to make sure you set these to no. Pickup lifespan is infinite. Selected team is none. Affects team all but selected. Selected class is none. Affects class is all but selected. Allow editing should be set to no. Building cost is at 100%. Again, doesn't quite matter here. You can set that to 0%. Building speed is 100%. And allow jumping is yes. Gravity is normal. The movement multiplier is set to 0. And I do want to enable the VFX. Now let's go on to functions. This zone will disable when receiving from objective device A when it's destroyed. And when the player enters the zone, it's going to enable or show pop-up dialog device, first menu A. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other three. Mutator zone device menu AB. You can see that everything here is kind of the same as the first mutator zone, with the exception that enabled during phase is set to none. And let me go ahead and switch allow editing back to no. Another difference you'll see is disabled when receiving from objective device B when it's destroyed, and enable receiving from objective device A when it's destroyed. So it's going through a loop system. When objective A is destroyed, it's going to enable this device. When objective B is destroyed, it's going to disable this device and enable this device. When objective C is destroyed, it's going to disable this device and enable this device. When the player enters the zone, it's going to show the second menu, which shows two zones active now, zones A and zones B. All right, let's take a look at mutator zone device menu A, B, and C. Again, everything is the same as mutator zone A and B, with the exception of the edit. Let me go ahead and turn that back to no. There you go. And again, these doesn't matter because there's no building within this zone. Disable when receiving from objective device C on destroyed. Enable when receiving from objective device B on destroyed. And when the player enters the zone, it's going to show pop-up dialog device, third menu, which is going to be A, B, and C. All right, let's take a look at the very last one. Again, these settings are exactly the same. And let me go ahead and turn off the edit. You notice there is no disable when receiving from, since this is the last menu. When they enable this mutator zone, it's going to show all the areas that are accessible now, because they should have completed objective A, B, and C to open up objective D. This will enable when objective C has been destroyed. And when the player enters the zone, pop-up dialog device, fourth menu, which will have A, B, C, and D, will show. Next we have the pop-up dialog devices. Alright, title I have set as sectors. Content alignment is set to centered tall. However, go ahead and take a peek. There's a ton of options you can choose from, so be sure to choose one that fits your game. Description is available sectors. Auto display is set to never. The timeout duration is no timeout. Timer options is on a countdown. Response type is set to 6 buttons. There is no default back button because we have it set within the buttons themselves. For button 1, it goes to sector A. Button 2, it says cannot access. Button 3 says cannot access. Button 4 says cannot access. And button 5 is the waypoint return. So this will teleport them back to the waypoint. And button 6 will take you back to the beginning of the menu. Text box transparency is set to yes. Mask background is set to yes. Enable during phase, I have it set to all. Allowed team is any. Affects team, all but selected. Allowed class, any. Affects class, all but selected. Now let's take a look at the functions. Show and receiving from is set to mutator zone. Menu A, when the play enters the zone. Also, it's set to button 6, so I went ahead and recalled this device here when responding to button 6. If the player does not press anything, they're going to be teleported back to the waypoint. When responding to button 1, it goes to teleporter A, and they're going to teleport. Since the other areas are not accessible yet, these areas are blank. On responding to button 5, it's going to teleport them right back to the waypoint. And let's see, button 6 will basically just redisplay the pop-up menu again. It'll take them right back to the beginning of the menu. Let's move on to menu AB and see if you can spot some differences. One major difference, you'll see that button 2 now says B. Button 3 you cannot access. Button 4 cannot access. Button 5 is the same, stating waypoint, and button 6 takes you back to the menu. Everything else is the same. And I'll go ahead and change those there. And let's take a look at the functions. Shown and receiving from mutator zone menu AB when the player enters the zone. and enable when receiving from objective A on destroyed. Everything else is clear. Let's go ahead and move on to events. On dismiss, send event to teleporter waypoint, meaning teleport them right back. Button A will transport them to sector A. Button 2 will transport them to sector B. And button 3 is empty because they haven't reached sector C yet. Button 4 is empty. Button 5 will take them right back to the waypoint. And button 6, and let's go ahead and put that through, will be set to take them right back to this menu. Alright, next up we have menu A, B, and C. Alright, and now you can see that button 3 is there. Button 4 says cannot access. And button 5 is the waypoint, and button 6 is the way back. Everything else is the same. I'm just going to change that right back to all but selected. Alright, when taking a look at functions, we have show when receiving from, mutator zone device, menu A, B, and C. On player entering the zone. And pop dialog device, which is the third menu, A, B, and C, when they respond to button 6. Alright, let's take a look at events. So on dismiss, we have send event to teleporter waypoint. That'll take them right back to their home base. And when responding to button 1, they're going to go right back to sector A. Button 2 will take them to sector B. Button 3 will take them to sector C. And button 4 would be for D, and they have not unlocked that sector yet, so that's going to be blank. Sector 5 is the waypoint, taking them right back, and then on button 6, it'll take them right back to the menu. Alright, in the very last pop-up device, we have A, B, C, and D. And you see the title is sectors, and you should see that this one's a lot more full. Button 1 is A, button 2 is B, button 3 is C, and then button 4 is D. We have button 5 for the waypoint, and button 6 is back again. And then everything else is quite the same. Let's go ahead and switch those back there. For our functions, show when receiving from mutator zone device, menu A, B, C, D, when the player enters the zone, and when they respond to button 6 on this exact same menu. And as far as events, if they dismiss it, it's going to take them back to the waypoint. And again, responding to button 1, it will take them to sector A, button 2, sector B, button 3, sector C, button 4, sector D. And then if they respond on button 5, it's going to take them right back to the waypoint. If they respond on button 6, it's going to just go ahead and show the menu again. Alright, so that is your pop-up dialog settings there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the teleporters. Starting with teleporter A. So you want to make sure that your teleporter group is set to none. And enable during phase is all, team is all, change teleporter target is never, link to target is no, teleporter rift is not visible, so set that to no. Play visual effects is no, play sound effects, sure, why not, let's do it. Let's set it to yes. Conserve momentum is yes. Face teleporter and teleporter direction is set to no on default, but let's go ahead and set that to yes, that's very important. Effects class, all but selected. Selected class is none. Effect radius is off. Maintain relative position is yes. Skydive after teleport, nope. And maintain momentum during teleport to event is set to world. When going to functions, you're going to see that you want to take a look at teleport when receiving from. And this is the same thing that correlates with what we just went through with the pop-up dialog device. When they respond to certain buttons, it's going to take them to this teleporter. So we have pop-up dialog device second menu when they respond to button 1, and this one is first menu responding to button 1, and fourth menu responding to button 1, and pop-up device third menu responding to button 1. Now these will automatically populate when you set your pop-up dialog devices, which is a fantastic thing about event binding. Let's go ahead and take a look here at events, and there's no events, and there you go. That's how you set up your teleporters. Usually they'll automatically be set up once you do your pop-up dialog devices, so we won't go through the rest of them because they're all going to be quite the same. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the timer device systems. The first timer we're going to look at is the till overflow, and this is the timer that provides the players how much time they need to complete the objective before the water overflows. I have it a duration of 3 minutes. Again, this can be anything you like depending on your game. There's no need to name the timer. Timer direction is a countdown. Start timer at game start is set to on. Activating team is any. Allowed class is any. Applies to everyone. Again, if you have a one-player game, you can set it to player only. I think in either case, these will be fine for a one-player game. If you have multiple players, then you may want to assign this to everyone. Reset timer if failing team or class check is set to off. Disable timer if failing team or class check is set to off. Result on timer in is success. Completion behavior is set to reset. Visible during game is set to yes. And that's because these timers are set off to the side, so the players won't actually see them. However, if the timer is in an area where the player will be present, you might want to set that to no. Timer color set to white. Display time in minutes and seconds. There's no timer not started text, but I do have timer running text, and it says till flood. Pause text is empty. Success score value is set to 0. Failure score penalty is set to 0. Score per second remaining is set to 0. Now, since this is a tutorial, I didn't set any scores. However, if you feel that scores will help your game, be sure to set these. I think they'll be really cool. Show on HUD is set to yes, and I have it set to a style of bold blue. It is not going to save this timer. I do have it on urgency mode set at 3 seconds. And urgency text states to hurry. Audio effects is on. If instigating player is not present, you're going to set it to a random player. Display score update on HUD is set to off. Let's go ahead and check out the functions. So since this starts when the game starts, we don't have anything set here, but we do have it set to pause. So we do want this to pause when all objectives have been completed. So I have a trigger that will trigger once all the objectives are completed, and this is going to pause this timer. In addition to pausing it, we're going to go ahead and disable it as well. And everything's empty from there. Let's go ahead and move on to events. So on success, I have it to activate the water device to start vertical filling, and speaker is going to display that sound that lets them know the time is up. Let's go ahead and look at the trigger since it is going to be activating another timer, and we'll just go ahead and go through the rest of the line here. So this is the trigger that's going to be counting the objectives when they're completed. We have it set to activating team any, allowed class any, triggered by player is on, triggered by damage is off, triggered by items is off, triggered by vehicles should be off, let's turn that there, triggered by creatures is off, triggered by sequencers is on, that's by default. It really doesn't matter in this case, so we can leave that on. Triggered by water is off, and that's because we do have the area flooding, so you want to make sure that's off. Activate on game phase is set to none. Times it can trigger is infinite. but it will only transmit every 4 times. There's no delay, there's no reset delay, and trigger sound is disabled. Triggered VFX is disabled. It is visible in game because it's so far away. Received damage while invisible is set to do not take damage, and enabled on game start is set to enabled. Alright, let's look at the functions. We have trigger when receiving from objective A when destroyed, objective B, C, and D when destroyed. When it is triggered, we're going to have it pause the timer device till overflow, disable that device, and start the timer device that is going to be a little mini buffer for the end game. It's also going to activate a speaker that lets the player know that they have unlocked all of the locations. Alright, so here's my little buffer for the end game device, and it's basically a 2-second timer. So I have it set on duration of 2 seconds. It's a countdown. It does apply to everyone. We want it to result as success. Completion behavior is reset. It is visible during game. And minutes and seconds for the display time in. Timer color is white. Time or running text is ending game. And again, there's no score. Everything's kind of the same. There is no urgency mode or text in this case. Alright, we're going to make sure that it starts when receiving from the objective counter. And when it's triggered, everything else is empty. On success, it's going to send an event to end the game. And that's it. Alright, so let's take a look at the end game device. And it's going to end the round, but you can if you want to end the game depending on what you're doing. The winning team is going to be the activating team. And these of course are optional. You can fill out whatever you like to do there. It will be enabled on game start. Activating team is any, allowed class is any. The post-game type I set for this tutorial is custom. Custom show scoreboard is hide for this tutorial. And again, these options you can actually just experiment with to see what you like for your game. I did put a little customization here. You survived. And so on. So you can take a look there at that. But again, these options are optional. Let's take a look at functions. Activate when receiving from timer device in-game on success. And that's it. Alright, so this is the speaker that's going to play the sound when the player completes all objectives. I have audio selection set to dark tilted. The volume is medium. The sound distance is the entire island. Retrigger behavior is ignore. Enable during phase is all. Activate on hit is yes. Visible in game is no. Can be heard by everyone. And play at location will be play at device. Functions, we got activate when receiving from the trigger objective counter when it's triggered. And that's it. Lastly in this lineup, we have HUD message device when the player spawns. This is going to let them know what objective they have to complete first. Now, for this tutorial, I did it this way just because it's a tutorial. However, you can include this in your pre-game information. That would probably be easier than starting off. However, if you don't have a pre-game and your game's just automatically starts, this would be a great addition to let the players know what they need to do first to get the game started. The message says complete objective A, and this is going to be only for the triggering player. Time from round start is set to off. It's on a display time of 3 seconds. The text style is default. The message priority is normal. The play sound is message. Placement is at the bottom center. and it is not visible during game. This is going to show when receiving from player spawner when the player is spawned. And that's it. Let's go ahead and complete the last two of the set here. We have speaker when the time is up. And this is going to be dark tilted negative. It sounds like this. The volume is medium. Sound distance is the entire island. Retrigger behavior is ignore. Enable during phase is all. Activate on hit is yes. Visible in-game is no. Can be heard by everyone. And play at location is the device. Now this is going to only activate when the timer device till overflow is a success. And that's it. Then we have new location, which sounds like this. And the player will hear this when a new location opens up. And that one is Fantasy Side Quest 1. The volume is medium. The sound distance is whole island. Retrigger behavior is ignore. Enable during phase is all. Activate on hit is yes. Visible in game is no. Can be heard by everyone. Play at location device. And then again, this is going to be activated when they destroy an objective. So we have objective device A on destroyed, objective device B on destroyed, objective device C on destroyed, and so on. Alright, those are all the devices on the back end. Let's go ahead and take a look at the settings for the devices in the front end over here. Alright, let's take a look at that water device. So enable during phase is all, interact with trigger is no, zone width is 100, zone depth is 100, zone height is 10, default vertical water percentage is 1%, vertical filling speed is at 100 TPM, vertical emptying speed is at 60 TPM, and there you go. For functions, we're going to start the vertical filling when receiving from timer device till overflow on success. Everything else is empty. So let's take a look at events. So on player entering the water, it's going to send an event to the health power up device, which I've renamed health damager water. And it's going to allow the player to pick this up. This will allow their health to decrease by the percentage that I set on that device. Next we have the player spawner. This is enabled during phase always. Player team is any, player class is any, priority group is don't override. We will be using this as island start for this tutorial. Visible in-game is off, play audio is no, enemy range check is 0.0. Display enemy range is when it's near, but that is not going to matter there. We don't have any functions, but we do have two events here. On player spawn, send an event to the map indicator sector A, and this is going to activate the objective pulse. This pulse will draw a line from the player to the objective that they need to complete, and then they're going to receive a message that's going to pop up from the HUD message device that says complete objective A, and there you go. This is our Waypoint teleporter, which is connected to our pop-up devices, and the settings is kind of the same as the other teleporters. We have enable during phase all, team is all, change teleporter target is never, link to target is no, teleporter riff is not visible, and no visual effects, no sound effects. We're going to conserve the momentum and face the player in the teleporter direction. It does affect all but the selected class. The selected class is none. Effect radius is off. Maintain relative position is yes. Skydive after teleport is no. And maintain momentum during teleport to event is world. As far as functions, we are teleport when receiving from pop-up dialog first menu, button 5, second menu, button 5, third menu, button 5, and fourth menu, button 5. And when the menu is dismissed, they're also going to teleport back here as well for all the menus there. As for events, there's no events, and there you go. Since the player starts with objective A, there's no barrier, so they're able to go into the area here and complete the objective. Let's go ahead and take a look at the settings. And let's start with the objective device. The health for this tutorial set to 20. The owning team is none. The blast radius is off. The beacon is off. It's going to hide the health bar at one tile. Show an objective HUD is off. The objective identifier is A. The custom objective text is empty. Display damage numbers is set to on. Visible during games is on. Show destroy messages is on. Critical notification threshold is none. Warning notification threshold is none. Play audio VFX is off. Score is set to 50. Collision during games is on. Collides with everything. Show objective post to instigator only is yes. Show objective post to friendly players is yes. Show objective post to enemy players is yes. Display score update on HUD is on. Now let me go ahead and stop real quick. Since this is a tutorial based on one player, these are all set to yes. However, if you have teams, then you may want to adjust these according to your game rules. Reset HUD message score is off. I have it set to display a message that says objective complete, and the color is of course optional. You'll see there's no functions and there's tons of events, so let's go ahead and go through them. And some of these you might already recognize. On destroyed, send an event to map indicator sector B to enable, and this will display that map indicator on the map. It's also going to activate the objective pulse from the player directly to objective B. It's going to deactivate the objective pulse from the player to objective A, since objective A is already destroyed. In addition to that, it's going to trigger the objective counter and set the text visible to billboard B, which is in the middle of the waypoint area. In addition to that, it's going to stop the effect at the VFX creator and disable the mutator zone menu A so that the player won't access that menu any longer when they go to the travel portal. In addition to that, it's going to also disable the pop-up dialog device first menu A and enable the second menu, which will display both routes A and B. It's going to also disable the barrier device that's protecting objective B and activate the speaker that plays the sound for a new location. The mutator zone menu A and B will also be enabled. And lastly, it's going to show a HUD message that lets the player know that sector B is opened. Alright, let's take a look at the VFX creator. Again, this is optional. I just thought it looked really cool to have this like glowing like halo around the objective, and this brings attention to the players to let them know that this is the objective they need to complete. So let's take a look at it. So start effects when enabled is set to yes. Enable during phase is all. The sprite shape is a disk 01. The sprite size is 7 times. The sprite duration is 0.1 second. It's on a planar sprite rotation alignment. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Use random color set to no, and I have it to a color green, that way it contrasts with the red. Main color brightness is 1. Use secondary color is no. Sprite speed is 5%. The gravity is set to 0. The randomness is set to 0. Size over time is keep the same. Spawn mode is continuous. Effect generation amount is 50%. It's on a loop forever. And loop duration is at 1 second. Time between loops is 1 second. The spawn zone shape is a point. The spawn zone size is 0.5, and it's not going to stick to the player's body part. Now we got functions. Let's see here. Stop affected device when the objective has been destroyed. And everything else is empty. There you go. Lastly is the HUD message device that lets the player know that once they destroy this one, Sector B will be open. So let's see, Sector B is open is the message. This will only go to the triggering player. Time from round start is off. Display time is 3 seconds. Text style is set to blue. Again, it's your choice. Message priority is normal. Play sound is message. Placement is center right, and it's not visible during game. And this is going to show when objective device A is destroyed. Alright, now for the map indicator. And let's take a look at that. Enabled on game start is set to yes. The team is all. Effects team all but selected. Allowed class is any. Effects class all but selected. Icon is A. The color is red. The text is Sector A. The color is also set to red here. Show on which map is both. Show objective pulse to instigator only is yes. Show objective pulse to friendly players is yes. And let's take a look at some functions here. We're going to activate the objective pulse when receiving from player spawner and deactivate when objective A is destroyed. Alright, so moving on to the next objective, we have a barrier, so let's check it out. I named this barrier objective B. It's on a blue force field. It's not visible during the game. The phase is gameplay only. It will block weapon fire. The zone shape is a box. The width is a 0.05. The depth is 1. The height is also 1. Let's see here. It's going to disable when received from objective device A when it's destroyed. Now this setup is very similar to objective A, but let's go ahead and take a peek. Health is set to 20, owning team is none, blast radius is off, beacon is off, the hide health bar at 1 tile, show an objective HUD is on, objective identifier is B, display damage numbers is on, display damage numbers on, visible during games is on, show destroy message is on, critical notification threshold is none, warning notification threshold is none, play audio VFX is off, score is 50, collision during games is on, and we're going to collide with everything, show objective pulse to instigator, yes, show objective pulse to friendly players, yes, show objective pulse to enemy players, yes, and display score update on HUD is on. Reset HUD message score is off. The message is going to state objective complete. And events, let's take a look here. On destroyed, send event to map indicator sector B. It's going to deactivate that pulse. The effects creator B, stop the effect at the device. Map indicator sector C is going to enable. Map indicator sector C is going to activate the pulse, alerting the player that a new objective is open and available for them to go to. Barrier device, objective C is disabled. Trigger objective counter is going to trigger. Billboard C is going to set text to be visible. The HUD message device for sector C is going to show, meaning it's going to say sector C is open. Mutator device zone menu A, B, and C will be enabled. They'll also hear the sound for a new location. The mutator zone device for menu AB will be disabled. And there you go. Alright, so map indicator for sector B. Everything is the same, but let's take a look here at the functions. You're going to enable when receiving from objective device A on destroyed. Activate objective pulse when objective A is destroyed. And deactivate objective pulse when objective B is destroyed. Map indicator sector C. And since everything is the same under all options, let's take a look at functions. We're going to enable when receiving from objective device B on destroyed. Activate objective pulse when receiving from objective B when destroyed. And lastly, deactivate objective pulse when receiving from objective C when destroyed. And with objective device C being the same, under options, with the exception of the identifier being the letter C, let's go ahead and take a look at the events. So we have on destroyed, send event 2, map indicator sector C to deactivate the objective pulse. Trigger objector counter is going to trigger. The map indicator sector D is enable. Map indicator sector D, activate objective pulse. Billboard D, set text visible. VFX creator will stop affect that device, and this will just be for the VFX that's around the objective device for sector C. Mutator zone device menu A, B, and C will disable. The speaker will play a sound because they activated a new location. The mutator zone device menu will enable, and this will be for A, B, C, and D. The message device will show that a new sector has been opened, and the barrier for objective D will disable, allowing them to go into that sector. Alright, so now we're at the very last objective. Let's take a look at that barrier device. It's going to disable when receiving from objective device C on destroyed. Now keep in mind, with event binding, these settings might automatically populate once you place them in another device, which is pretty awesome. Alright, so let's take a look at the objective device D. All the options are the same except for the objective identifier, which is set to D. There's no functions. On destroyed, we're going to send an event to the trigger. The map indicator sector D will deactivate the objective pulse to this device. It's also going to stop the effect that's going around the device for the VFX creator. And lastly, it's going to show a message saying that all the sectors are clear. And you can see that's connected to a HUD message device. Now it's not going to play a sound because the sound is coming from the timer, which is going to reflect that all sectors have been cleared. And then the game will end. Lastly, let's take a look here at what's going on here in the midsection. So we do have billboards here that display when every objective is completed. This one is automatically on display, so let's take a look here. This is text set to A, text size of large or extra large. Text justification is center, text font is roboto, outline is none, shadow is none, view distance is infinite, show border is off, the color is concrete white, there's no background, it's clear, and it is enabled during phase always. There's no functions and there's no events. However, for billboard B, the major difference is the gameplay phase. So it's going to be enabled during phase set to none, and it's going to only enable or set the text to visible when objective A is destroyed. And for C, it's the same. The phase is set to none and set text to visible when objective B is destroyed. And the same for D. All options are the same with the exception of enable during phase is set to none and set text visible when objective C is destroyed. Alright, let's take a look at the waypoint indicator. Enabled on game start is yes, team is all, affects team all but selected, allowed class is any, affects class all but selected. The icon is W for waypoint. The icon color is blue. The text is waypoint. The color is white. It's going to show on both the overview map and the mini map. The show objective pulse to instigator is set to yes. Show objective pulse to friendly players is set to yes. There's no functions, and there you go. Like I said, very extensive tutorial. What we're going to do next is go ahead and run a test so I can show you guys what this game looks like. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's go. When players spawn in, they can see which objective they need to complete first. They can also see what objectives are available in the middle section. If they try to go to an objective that's not ready, they're going to be met with a barrier and they will not be able to get in. If they go to the menu, they can see what available sectors they can visit. However, they're going to have limited options. Now let's go ahead and complete Objective A. Alright, in this example it teleported me right back, and then you can see that Objective B is now available. When the player goes back to the menu, they'll see that Objective B is available. They can teleport there and go directly to the objective. Now they're pointed to the next objective, which is Objective C, and you can see it there in the middle area. If they go to the menu, they'll also see that Objective C is now available. Now the player is able to visit Objective A, B, C, and D all at the same time. And when going to the menu, they have unlocked all the areas. Let's go ahead and complete the game by completing Objective D. And there you go, an objective game mode with a waypoint system. Yo, that was a big one, but I do hope it helped you out. If it did, please drop a comment below. I would love to see it. Other than that, I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye!